We're going to be working in the golden grid with an ordinary number 2 pencil. There's your number 2 pencil, and we're going to remember to sharpen our pencil. So there's my sharpener and my pencil in the golden grid. We're going to be laying areas of value out loosely, not outlining anything, just sort of blocking things in loosely and lightly and letting our value build up. So the largest areas of value that I have are on the bottom and in the middle, so I'm just laying out large washes of graphite loosely and quickly. Just getting general shapes in there. So you can see there's a large area of light on top, and then from the bottom and through the middle and to the right side is where most of my slightly darker values are. Not worried about details. I haven't outlined anything. I'm just washing the values in using a loose movement. I hold my pencil high and I kind of let the pencil rock back and forth in my hand in the beginning just so that I'm loose. I don't want to be too tight with this. Trying to keep things pretty high key, at least in the beginning. Graphite doesn't get, especially number 2 graphite pencil, doesn't get super dark, but you can get a range of values. So when you draw like this, you start off with a bunch of lines with white space between them. And as you draw, you're gradually filling in those areas of light between the marks. You don't want to start off like that. You just want to keep it real loose in the beginning. So I've got the shadow that's underneath the apple, and I've got the cast shadow on the right. The light is coming from the left. So you can see that the stem of the apple, I don't think of it just as a line, it's a shape. It's very specific, so I'm building it up as I build everything else up as well. So here I'm blending in some of those marks on the apple and on the ground, darkening the darker parts of the apple, but not going as dark as they're going to be, just building it up. You're building everything up at the same time. Another thing I want you to notice is that the edges of my apple, I don't draw them from the outside and work my way in. I start in the middle and push out towards the edges of the apple. It's because I want the edges of the apple to be loose and kind of fuzzy. So if I drew a line there, that'd make it really sharp. So I'm working on that the core of the cast shadow of the apple. I want you to also notice that because we made our grid with a number 2 pencil, those grid lines are slowly being absorbed into the marks that I'm making. You can still see some of them, but they're becoming less apparent. I like letting the grid marks show in my drawings. Here I'm modeling the apple. It's darker on the right. It's a little lighter on the very bottom next to the cast shadow. Now I'm getting that cast shadow a little bit more blended. An apple is similar to a sphere, and it takes light in a similar way. So the darkest part won't be usually on the edge. It'll be somewhere more inside the body of the apple. The shadows on the apple will be curved. So in order to make the left side of the apple look light, I have to darken up the ground around it. And if I notice that I've been working on one area of the drawing a lot and leaving another part of it untended, then I'll remember to go to that area. But I'm not playing it. My tape was getting loose, so I had to push it down there. Kind of defining those edges a little bit. But still not drawing a hard line around anything. I'm wanting this drawing to be made out of value shapes instead of outlining something and filling it in. I'm wanting to keep it in an upper range of values. I want it to kind of have a misty quality. So the bottom of the apple has a little light area, and I'm trying to make it look light by making the areas around it a little darker. Getting my cast shadow a little darker so that the areas of light appear lighter. Value is relative. It means you can make something that looks dark. You can make something look dark if you put it against a light area, and you can make that same thing look light if you put it against a dark area. So by darkening that shadow, I'm making that little area on the apple on the bottom look a little lighter. You'll see it kind of come out more as I continue to draw. My pencil is getting dull, so I had to sharpen it. Don't forget to sharpen your pencils. Also, if you notice the way that I'm holding my pencil, I'm holding it at an angle to the paper, and I'm also turning it in my hand as I draw so that I'm keeping the end of my pencil sharp. I spent about an hour on this drawing, and I only had to sharpen my pencil once because I'm not pressing real hard, and I'm turning the pencil and holding it at an angle. That kind of self-sharpens the pencil a little bit. There's some details on the apple, little bruises and stuff that I'm starting to bring out. But those are things that you wait to deal with until a little bit later in the drawing. So here, the curved shadow of the apple, I was starting to pull that out a little bit more. Trying to get a little bit of a halo around that apple, so drawing darker around it. So as my object becomes more defined, start making smaller moves than I was making because now I'm at the refining stage of drawing this. The shape is pretty set. It's just a matter of adjusting my values. I can still refine the shapes a little. Just blending my marks now. Getting a little bit of subtle variation in the darks on the right. I think you can see that light area on the bottom of the apple comes out the more dark I put around it. Thought my halo was a little too light, so I darkened it up a little bit. There's that curved shadow that models the apple. Getting the stem, paying a little more attention to the stem and to the little bruises in the apple. So I can see that the right side of the apple has more of a defined edge, and the left side is more blends more with the ground. So I'm playing around with the ground to give that left side sort of a loose quality where there's kind of dissolving into the background a little bit. refining the cast shadow some more to make that apple really look like it turns at the bottom. You notice that I'm not resting my hand on my paper. I may do that once or twice for a small detail at the very end, but in general, my hand's not contacting the paper. The only thing touching the paper is the lead of the pencil. Now I'm just adjusting my values by putting light washes over them, getting my edges a little bit clearer. Really going that dark on the left edge of the format up to a loose edge of the apple so that helps the apple look like it's turning in space. Also, I'm working on that top part, bringing it down to the top edge of the apple so the top edge of the apple is one of the lightest parts of the drawing. Now it's really getting down to refining. You see what I was talking about, bringing various levels of value up to the edge of the apple so that the apple kind of has multiple edges if you look closely at it on the left side. Working on that mottled shadow that curves around the apple. Just getting some subtle variations. I'll probably rest my hand for that. And that's it. Hope that helps.